From Oscar Pistorius straight up killing his girlfriend to Ryan Lochte fabricating a whole story about getting robbed, let's talk about the times athletes were disgraced. Being the first ever amputee to cross over into mainstream sport is definitely no easy feat, but Oscar Pistorius defied all odds and broke several barriers when he entered the 400 as well as the 4x100 meter relay races at the Olympics in 2012. But the Blade Runner found himself in the middle of major controversy when he confessed to shooting his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, a South American model, at his home in Johannesburg in 2013. According to Pistorius, the whole incident was actually a case of some seriously mistaken identity because he thought his girlfriend was an intruder, so he shot her through the bathroom door. He was eventually charged with murder, denied parole, and is currently serving a 13-year prison sentence in South Africa. The former athlete was a Paralympic sprinter who, despite having his legs amputated before he turned one, had managed to win several gold medals at the Paralympics through the course of his life. He was hailed as South Africa's hero, but he fell from the world's grace in the blink of an eye. Much like Pistorius, former professional cyclist, Lance Armstrong's life also rapidly changed. Armstrong was an icon who'd managed to achieve unprecedented levels of success with 7 consecutive wins in the prestigious Tour de France. But soon after, allegations began to surface regarding Armstrong's use of performance-enhancing drugs. After the U.S. anti-doping agency launched an investigation, the former athlete's widespread drug use was verified. To make things worse, he went on Oprah in 2013 and confessed for the first time to doping and verified that he'd been doing it for years. He made several claims that, since other cyclists were also heavily doping, he only did it to remain competitive. Jeez. As a result, he was notably banned from Olympic sports for the rest of his life, but all 7 of his Tour de France titles were also stripped. As soon as he admitted to the drug use, all of his sponsors also cut ties with him. 11 in one day, including Nike, Trek, 24 Hour Fitness, Oakley, Radio Shack, and Easton Bell Sports. Clearly, they wanted to distance themselves as far as possible from the drug abuse scandal. Even the Livestrong Foundation asked him to resign from the board. The money he lost through these endorsement deals was valued at a massive $150 million. Honestly, Armstrong's case is the perfect example of why we shouldn't do drugs, especially if you're a world-famous athlete. But it looks like Maria Sharapova didn't get that memo, since she became the first premier tennis player in the history of the sport to fail a doping test. In 2016, Sharapova admitted to using a banned substance for most of her professional career, a drug called meldonium, which was banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency. But in an interesting turn of events, the tennis star claimed that she was unaware that the substance was banned and had been taking the medication, which was prescribed by her doctor to treat several of her health issues for over 10 years. Her claims of not recognizing the updated list of banned substances were shaky at best when it came to the general public's reaction. This is largely because athletes like her, Olympic-level professionals, have a team of supporters including handlers, assistants, lawyers, managers, and coaches just to make sure something like this doesn't happen. Some fans chose to give her the benefit of the doubt because she tended to keep her team small and make most decisions herself. But the critics noted that Sharapova had her sights set on the 2016 Olympics, which meant there was definitely another layer of officials whose job it was to make sure athletes knew which substances were banned by WADA. Sharapova's biggest mistake in this entire incident was to frame her failed drug test as a simple oversight, almost like a common mistake. One would make it work. That could have happened to anyone, like an email you forgot to send. Seriously? Since the announcement of the epic drug test failure, massive sponsors like Porsche and Nike dropped the professional player, and she was banned for 2 years following an investigation. But she appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and it was eventually reduced to 15 months, but obviously the damage was done. Perhaps no one could relate to this level of damage more than former NFL star Aaron Hernandez. In a few short years, he went from being a celebrated player to a terrifying murder suspect. Drafted by the New England Patriots in 2010, the American football titan was on the rise to become the next big thing in the beloved game. But everything changed in 2013 when Hernandez was suspected of murdering a friend and semi-pro footballer Odin Lloyd of the Boston Bandits. As a consequence, he was immediately released from his contract with the Patriots before he was even proven guilty. Following a trial, the former football running back was convicted of first-degree murder in 2015 and sentenced to life without parole for the death of his friend. During the proceedings of the Lloyd case, police also found reports linking Hernandez to several other ongoing investigations, including the murders of Daniel De Abreu and Safiro Furtado in Boston in 2012. The cleaners were killed in a drive-by shooting, and the killer was never found. The former NFL star lost all his sponsorships, his claim to fame, and his entire future. Unfortunately, his story had a more grim ending than anyone could have suspected. In 2017, Hernandez took his own life and was found in his prison cell 5 days after he was found not guilty of the 2012 double homicide. Sometimes it can be hard to believe that athletes that have everything going for them would voluntarily throw it all away. For a Super Bowl champion with great rushing totals, it's almost unbelievable that that's exactly what happened with the Baltimore Ravens' Ray Rice. But I guess when you're caught on video dragging your unconscious fiancé out of an elevator, it's only natural that no other team on the planet would want to touch you with a 10-foot pole. In 2014, Ray Rice and his then fiancée, Janie Palmer, were involved in a fight on an elevator in a casino in Atlantic City. The Atlantic City police saw surveillance footage from inside the elevator that showed Rice and Palmer continue to strike each other until Rice knocked out his fiancée. They were both arrested and taken to a holding facility where each of them was charged with assault. While the charges against Palmer were eventually dropped, Rice wasn't so lucky and was convicted of third-degree aggravated assault. Initially, the former NFL player also got a 2-game suspension by the organization for his misconduct, but it wasn't until several months later that things really went from bad to worse. TMZ obtained and released the full video from inside the elevator, which showed Rice punching Palmer rather viciously. As a result, the Baltimore Ravens kicked Rice out of the team, while the NFL suspended him indefinitely. The whole thing cost Rice his job and his reputation, but not his wife. Yep, despite the assault, Rice and Palmer worked out their differences and decided to marry a few weeks after the controversial altercation. For years, he kept pushing videos to several teams in hopes of getting signed, but it looks like he just came with too much baggage, and his potentially great career ended as badly as one can imagine. By 2018, Ray Rice officially gave up on his football dreams, knowing he was done. While we're unfortunately on the topic of physical assault, mere hours after a UFC Hall of Fame fight induction, former UFC champ Jonathan Dwight Jones, more popularly known as John Jones, was arrested in Las Vegas after a harrowing incident at Caesars Palace. He was charged with domestic battery and damage to a vehicle. Despite several reports of Jones leaving his fiancée, Jessie Mose was left a bloodied mess. After assaulting her infant of their 3 children, Jones was released from custody shortly after posting bail. In addition to the assault, his career has been rife with controversy, with the UFC fighter being involved in a multitude of legal issues, even including a hit-and-run incident from 2015, which left him suspended and stripped of his title. He has also tested positive for several banned substances on a lot of occasions, which has further led to tarnishing his already not-so-great reputation. What a waste of talent. But perhaps the most bizarre incident that led to utter disgrace comes at the hands of Olympic swimmer Ryan Lochte himself. In 2016, Lochte and his teammates made serious claims that they were robbed in Rio de Janeiro during the 2016 Summer Olympics. In several media interviews, Lochte described armed men who had police badges, allegedly forced them out of their taxi in the early hours of the morning, and took their valuables. The only problem: the whole thing was a made-up story. Wild, right? Shortly after the interview Lochte gave, the Brazilian police revealed that the popular American swimmer had fabricated the entire thing. To make matters worse, both Bentz and Conger told the Brazilian police during questioning that Lochte's story was entirely false. The Olympic Committee rightfully suspended the swimmer, and his teammates and the 6-time gold medalist issued an apology tweet after the whole thing became an international joke. So, from Ryan Lochte fabricating a story about being robbed to Oscar Pistorius killing his girlfriend, these were the times athletes were disgraced.